Yes, I do have the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro in my hands with the brand new Apple Silicon inside. These new MacBook Pros, updated MacBook Pros, come with either an M2 Pro or an M2 Max chip, which is the first time we're seeing the second generation of the Pro level Mac chips. So let's get this thing open and unboxed and take a look at it. Yes, so I actually ordered a 14-inch MacBook Pro with the Apple M2 Pro Max chip with 32 gigabytes memory and 2 terabytes of storage. Unfortunately, that version is not going to be here until later this week, so I was able to pick up this base model 14-inch MacBook Pro, which has the M2 Pro chip, and it has a 512 gig SSD and 16 gigabytes of memory. Now, this base model only has the 10-core rather than the 12-core CPU. But this does have just the 16-core GPU. Now, the Pro, the M2 Pro, can be upgraded to a 19-core GPU, but you can also go with the Pro Max, which gets a 30-core GPU or a 38-core GPU. All right, so I picked this up from the Apple Store, so it's not wrapped in plastic. We just have these pull tabs right here that allow you to, oh yeah, pull that right on open. There we go. And this box actually feels thicker than the previous boxes. Look how the bottom doesn't even line up with the top. I mean, what are you doing, Apple? That's terrible. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this guy open, and there we are. Yes, we've seen this before. We've seen this very similar to last year's model, and of course, the MacBook Airs and other MacBooks before this, but there's just something about opening up a brand new Apple device that I love. Like, yeah, it's got that new Apple smell. Now, the packaging has changed over the last number of years, so everything's pretty much recyclable and biodegradable and, you know, good stuff for the environment, which is good. Get the MacBook Pro laser etched on the bottom, which looks fantastic, and the MacBook itself, which we'll look at in just a moment. We also have the Design by Apple California, the regular stickers, of course black because it's Pro. Now, this base model does have just the 67-watt power adapter. And if you get the 12-core CPU, you will actually get the 96-watt power adapter rather than this 67-watt. And you do get a color matched, mine's silver, so of course it's just silver, but you do get a color matched cable this year for your 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. And this is the MagSafe connection to charge the MacBook, which I really almost never ever do. I usually am plugged into a dock. Now let's get to this beautiful beast itself. Open it up, we're gonna hear a dong. There it is. Take the screen protector off and yep, God, there's just, again, like I said, something about opening a brand new Apple device that's just, it feels so premium. It feels so nice to touch, like, and it's untouched, right? Nobody else has touched this, essentially, without gloves probably, until me. Now, you guys have seen this design before, right? This is essentially an untouched design from the previous versions of the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. You get basically all of the same hardware features on the outside, the same aesthetics, the same screen, keyboard, trackpad, speakers, ports, all of that. But inside is where the real difference is, and this time you get the second generation of Pro Mac silicon chips. The new M2 Pro and Pro Max chips are up to 20% faster than the previous version M1 Pro and M1 Pro Max. And that's coming from a couple of different things, including faster overall core speed, but also you get 2 additional efficiency cores, which means you're offloading some more of that crap that doesn't need high-powered CPUs to perform. Now, setting up your new Mac can take a lot of time, especially if you're coming from an old Mac. So if you are interested in seeing a video about how to migrate from an older Mac to a new Mac, definitely let me know down below by hitting the thumbs up button and leaving me a comment. And I don't know why, but sometimes when it's on the setup iCloud portion, it just seems to take forever. And sometimes it's nice and speedy. So I don't know what the difference is there. So while this is doing its thing, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of this laptop on the outside. So on the left side, again, we have those same ports that we had on the 14 and 16-inch MacBook last year. We do have our MagSafe connection for power. We have 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, so it works with Thunderbolt 3 and USB 4. You get a headphone jack on the Max, which I think is the last product line to still have headphone jacks. And on the other side, you do have an HDMI port, another Thunderbolt 4 port, and an SD card slot, which I absolutely love. Other than that, the physical design is essentially unchanged on the outside. You have vents down here for heat. You have a vent right here for the fan, which you basically never ever hear on these devices, which is so cool. And finally, we're moving forward so we can set up Touch ID. And that brings me to the keyboard. The keyboard was fully updated on the previous models to get rid of the touch bar and give us a full frickin' function row key, which I love a ridiculous amount for some reason. The display is also the same as the previous updated MacBook Pros. That is the Liquid Retina XDR display, which gets up to 1600 nits of brightness, which is just an insane amount when you're watching HDR content. And it gets up to 500 nits for regular content viewing, which is more than enough for very bright office environment. I really do think that this is the best display that Apple makes, although the 12.9-inch iPad Pro does come pretty close. They both have those mini LED backlights, which has a whole bunch of different zones, so you get a really good contrast, you get really dark blacks, and you get really bright whites. Now, of course, I'm going to test this computer against the M2 Pro Max along with my previous M1 Pro Max, but just for fun, I ran the Geekbench and we're getting 1928 for single core and 12284 for the multi-core. That's interesting because comparing against the base model, so the 8-core CPU from the M1 Pro, that is about 12% faster. But when you look at the multi-core, that is essentially about the same multi-core speed as the M1 Max. So this base model 10 CPU processor is getting essentially the same speed as the 10 CPU M1 Pro Max. And same thing when we look at the results for Metal in the Geekbench test, we're getting 40,476, which is about 10% better than the 14-core GPU was on the M1 Pro. Now, again, similar to the CPU test, this is a very small change from the 16-core M1 Pro. So with the base model, at least, we're not really seeing that big 20 to 30% improvement that Apple kind of stated in their presentation. However, this is the base model and there are higher end specs available. So there's going to be all kinds of questions about whether you should upgrade or whether it's worth it to go from the M1 Pro to the M2 Pro or the Max versions. And time will tell and tests will tell, but in general, probably not. But on the other hand, it's pretty impressive that, this one aside, that in the second generation of the first Apple Silicon Mac chips, Apple is able to achieve anywhere close to the 20 to 30% improvements that could be possible with higher end models. So I'm really excited to check those out. So stay tuned for more. So what do you guys think of the new 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros and the new Apple Silicon chips? Let me know below. If you're thinking you want to save some money and you'd rather get a refurbished MacBook Pro and save a whole bunch of cash, definitely check out this video right over here. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, hit subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.